Hey, it's Danny from projectmanaverse.com, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 benefits of defect management. So let's jump straight in. First of all, what is defect management? Well, let me provide some context first of all. So as you go through your project, you're going to be building something, you're going to be building some kind of software or changing some software and implementing it. And of course you have to test that, and you're going to have several testing phases in your project to be able to do that. And as you're testing your software, you're going to discover things that are not quite right with the software. You're going to find requirements that haven't been built correctly or haven't been fulfilled, and that essentially creates a defect. It's a defect in the product that you have built. And as you go through testing, you'll get more defects and more defects, and things can start to get chaotic very quickly if you have a lot of defects. So those defects need to be managed, and that is essentially defect management. You're bringing in a manager to manage all those defects. It's actually a big job to make sure things are running a lot more smoothly than they would be if you didn't have a defect manager there. So let's go on to the 5 benefits of doing defect management. Benefit number 1 is it ensures you are working on the right defects first. As I say, you could have a lot of defects on your project, more than you can handle, more than you have time to fix, and also stick to your original project timelines. So by having a good defect management process in place, you make sure you triage those defects and you assess how critical they are and how impactful they are. Usually we have a severity and a criticality assigned to each defect. So how severe is a defect, how much impact is it going to cause, and what's the priority. So of course the bigger impacting defects are usually going to have the highest priority. So you want to make sure you're working on those first of all. Sometimes you can fix some smaller ones along the way that aren't very severe, but they're very quick to fix, and you can do it quickly. You know it's not going to be a big overhead. So that takes a lot of assessment. It's quite time consuming to be able to go through that every day and keep looking at your defect list and prioritize it in the right way. So, but if you do that, it will make sure you're looking at the number 1 problems first of all, and you're not wasting time on smaller things that aren't that important, and avoiding those big things that are really going to be showstoppers to your ultimate go live of your project. That's benefit number 1. It ensures you're looking at the right defects first. Benefit number 2 helps to ensure you're not making things worse by impacting your code when you're fixing your defects. So when you're going through your defect fixes, let's take a step back. So someone gives you a call and say, Danny, we've got a defect. Okay, what's the defect? This functionality is not working correctly. It's not doing the calculation correctly. Okay, let me have a look at it. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I'll give it to my engineers and they fix it. Now they put that fix in, and now somehow that fix had actually caused something else to stop working. So you want to make sure when you're doing defect fixes that you're assessing the entire code. Is it part of that core code, and are you changing that core code? Because if you are, then that's going to be very risky. It might impact other areas of the code. Or is it a kind of periphery bit of code that's not going to be very high risk to other areas of code? Defect management is part of doing that assessment, or doing that assessment rather is part of defect management. So you make sure that when you're fixing things and you're deploying them to your code, you're not messing up other areas of code and everything is nice and controlled. If you don't do that, then you're going to be playing whack-a-mole with the defects, and you're going to be wasting time, and it's going to get very chaotic. So that's your second benefit. It ensures that you're not making things worse by fixing defects. Benefit number 3 of defect management, it will help you get through testing faster, because as I say, when things get too chaotic, you've got defects everywhere, things can just suddenly grind to a halt because progress is stopped, everyone is confused, you're causing problems by it's just not organized, and that can just slow down your testing phase. By having nice slick defect management, you can ensure that you're moving forward with your testing, because remember, you have to keep testing while you're fixing these defects. You've got a deadline to hit. You want to make sure you hit that deadline, and defect management helps you to achieve that deadline and keep things moving forward and ultimately do things faster. If you didn't have any defect management at all, the testing phase can drag on and drag on and drag on. So by having good defect management, you're ensuring you're doing things faster, and ultimately you're going to meet that end date, which will most likely be critical path to your ultimate project go live. So it's really, really important. So that's benefit number 3, helps you get through testing faster. Benefit number 4 is it helps with your project advocacy. Now, don't underestimate how important it is that your project and what you're doing on your project and how your project team members are acting is being looked at by other areas of the business and judged as well. Your project will have a reputation, either a bad reputation as being always having problems and always being red and causing problems to the wider stakeholders in the business, or it's going to be regarded with a lot of respect and they think, well, that's a model project, that's how we should be doing things. You want to be the latter. You want to be that project with a good reputation, and having a very good organized defect management process will really help with that, because when your stakeholders look at what you're doing, even if you have lots of defects coming up, if you're banging through them and closing them down very quickly and you're organized and you're still moving forward with your testing, and you know, and your defect manager knows and your test manager knows exactly what's going on, and all your administration is up to date and all your defect software and your JIRAs, they're all up to date and maintained correctly, and all your defect statuses are correct and everything looks good, that's going to have a big impact to people looking in on the project, especially at that higher senior level. They might think, well, I can see you've got a lot of problems, but I can see you are on top of it, so crack on, well done. So that's what you want, and that's the 4th benefit. It will help with your project advocacy. Benefit number 5, this is one that most people don't realize, but having defects and good defect management can be a good thing, because when you're in the process of trying to figure out the root cause of a defect, it forces you to look at the design in a lot of detail from different perspectives, especially if you're really struggling to find that root cause. And sometimes you think about that end-to-end design of the thing you built in ways that you would not have done if you didn't have those defects to solve. And again, good defect management is all about making sure you've got the right people to triage the defect, to understand, is it a defect to begin with? It's about having the right people to analyze the defect and get to the root cause. It's about having the right people to impact assess the fix to make sure it's going to fit in and not disrupt the wider design. So all of that is part of defect management. And as I say, you wouldn't necessarily do that if you didn't have a good defect management process in place, and you will discover things, or you'll think about things that will ultimately make the product better than had you not done that in the first place. So that's benefit number 5. It will force you to look at your end-to-end design of the thing you built in ways that you would not have done, and it will probably improve the product in ways that you would not have done had you not have the defect management process in place. Okay, those are the 5 benefits. I'll go through those very quickly because we've got a bit of time, one more time, and then I'll wrap up the video. So benefit number 1, it ensures you're working on the right defect first. So you're focusing on those really severe critical defects, not wasting your time on peripheral stuff that doesn't really matter. Benefit number 2, helps you to ensure you're not making things worse, you're not making the product worse by not impact assessing your fix properly and throwing out some other part of the software when you're putting your fix in. Benefit number 3, helps you to get through testing faster. You're much more organized and you're much more, you can work at a much faster pace when you've got good defect management in place. And ultimately you want to hit that end of test deadline, that end of test milestone to ensure that your critical path for your project is not impacted and ultimately can go live by your planned implementation date. Benefit number 4, project advocacy. It looks much better on you as a project manager and on your project as a whole if you've got slick defect management in place that's working very well. And then benefit number 5, it forces you and your team to think deeply about the end-to-end design of your product in ways you wouldn't have done if you didn't have good defect management in place. Okay, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And until tomorrow, please take care.